Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 37. That's right, 37. I actually just realized the other day that we've been doing this for, well, actually way over a year now, come to think about it. But yeah, just a little over a year. My wife brought that up. That's awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And we want to keep bringing you the best content, the best topics possible. So, without further ado, this episode we are going to talk about the workout program that will give you the best results. Okay, this workout program will give you the best results. So this is a little bit of a follow-up to on episode 7, which was actually just a little over a year ago. Ryan and I did together when Ryan was still on the podcast. I kicked him off, fired him, got rid of him, kicked him to the curb. Just kidding. But anyhow, on episode 7, Ryan and I talked about picking the right gym for you. And we actually did that before 2021 to help guide people to figure out, what gym or what location will be best for them going into the year 2021. Well, here we are in 2022, and I kind of want to give a little bit of follow-up and a little bit more of a deep dive, if you will. So why did I choose this topic? Well, I constantly get asked a lot of I get asked questions often from either our members or even people who are inquiring to join the gym, and even just friends, family, acquaintances, people I meet. They'll always ask, how do I choose the right thing for me? There's so many options out there. How do I figure out what is best for me and what will help me to reach my goals? But then there's also questions, obviously I talk about that stuff. I talk about what we do, and they'll say, well, what makes you any different? Or really, what makes all of you any different? There's all these I go into these gyms, I try these workouts, and it seems like you're all kind of doing the same thing. Not quite. Not quite. And we'll dive into that a little bit more. And then some even go as far as to say, well, isn't just moving and activity good enough? Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I'd prefer someone to be active and do things prefer to those who don't. But that doesn't necessarily mean that if you just do daily walks, you're going to get the goal, you're going to achieve the goal that you want to. There's a little bit more to it than that. So let's dive in here a little bit. So I'm going to start off by just talking about like all the different programs out there that are available for you first. There's a few of them, I'll admit, and I'll give a little description for each one, exactly what the emphasis is, or at least should be if someone says that their program is based around this. So number one, we're going to start off with the biggest, the best, in my opinion, but really is one of the most important ones, is a strength training program. Now, many of you out there are like, well, isn't that kind of what we all do? Strength training program? No. That's where the issue is. The issue with strength training, so strength training programs, for those of you out there, provides an emphasis on doing the appropriate amount of weight with the appropriate amount of effort and the appropriate amount of rep scheme or time under tension, you will, which time under tension refers to the amount of time that you actually have the weight, that you're engaged with the weight and you are lifting it or moving it. So with strength, despite what people think, strength is one of those things that yes, there's research out there that proves that even using a weight that's 30% of your 1 rep max. So let's say like something that you can, if you're squatting or you're picking a bar up off the ground, deadlifting, if you can only do that one time for, the max amount of effort, 30% of that is, that's your 30% 1 rep max. So strength is basically that you are at least within 30% 1 rep max, but to be truly effective with strength, and I'm talking about each of these to the optimal, at optimal levels, you have to really be, over at least 75% of your 1 rep max. So it means that you're putting in forth, pretty high effort. You're lifting fairly heavy things for yourself. And, you're doing that for, let's say, like up to 10 to 20 sets per week. Now that's, different body parts. We won't dive into that. But so basically, but then you also need to make sure that you are giving yourself enough time. So this is at least like a minute to 2 minutes worth of a rest break between the sets that you are doing these. And so again, not to dive into the minutia, but these are things that you really have to these are things that should be considered and taken into account whenever someone is doing a strength training program. So, strength training programs are not that you're lifting weights. That's what people like to think they are, but they're really about making sure you're putting forth the right amount of effort with the right amount of stress, and then giving yourself enough time between each of those efforts for your central nervous system, for everything to fully recover before you do it again. Okay. And I go into a lot of depth and detail with this one specifically because we're going to revisit this. Okay. Now, a little cousin to strength is power. I didn't actually put this in my notes to go over, but power is something else. And power is really just about, you want to move a certain load the fastest. Okay. Now, a lot of you aren't going to really go through power training programs out there, but I want you to really think about that whenever someone is having you do a box jump or holding a weight and doing a bunch of jumping or saying that they're doing plyometrics. That power, really comes down to a quick force that's, to go as fast as you possibly can in a short amount of time. Because again, buzzwords. There's a lot of programs out there will show, oh, improve your strength, your power, look better, blah 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 blah. Power is one of those things that you really need to focus on specifically. And so you can't just like throw power in with every program and think that you're going to get something out of it. So again, just for the buzzword part of it. Muscle building programs. You might hear these as like hypertrophy. You'll hear muscle building. Some might even use the term toning with this one. And then, some might throw strength in here too. But in reality, we're just talking about muscle building. We're talking about putting on muscle. Now, these programs, these are meant to, you should be doing a certain amount of weight. So, you're not quite going as high as you would with strength training. So, you're going to kind of be below, it's that 75% or below. And you're doing these for higher amounts of reps. Okay. So what happens is when we have a certain amount of weight, resistance, or load, we have to do that for a certain amount of time. Okay, so that's kind of that time under tension thing again. We do it for a certain amount of time. There's this tension that's put on the muscle, and then eventually what happens is, there's micro tears that occurs. There's a hormonal reaction that occurs. There's a reaction that occurs within the nervous system, and it causes these muscles to adapt to get bigger. Okay, and why I say this is unless you are doing that, unless you are doing a specific load for a certain amount of time, you are not achieving this goal. And so, if someone tells you to pick up a weight and do it 3 times, and they said, we're trying to build muscle here, that's not actually doing it. At the same point, if someone tells you to pick up a weight and do it for, 2 minutes, you're not really doing a muscle building style program. Research typically says within 30 seconds to a minute is a good range for this. Or some will do the 8 to 20 reps. So, but within that 8 to 20 reps, you should be going fairly close to failure too. This isn't a thing where you do 8 to 20 reps of an exercise and you still have 10 left in the tank and then you set down the weight. No, you need to be making sure that you are going close to failure but not quite there, because again, that's how the system adapts. Conditioning is another program. So conditioning is what we all consider cardio. Okay, so and why I put conditioning is because why I put conditioning instead of cardio is because cardio a lot of times refers to the heart. But what conditioning really is, it is providing a certain amount of effort for a certain amount of time so that our system adapts to be more efficient. And that's the big thing there, is our system needs to be more efficient. And we have to have an increase in capacity in our body to be able to perform something. So, building strength and building muscle is not efficient. Now, yes, you become more efficient because you become stronger and you can handle things with less effort. But in reality, by putting on muscle, we actually make our bodies less efficient. So that's why we burn calories, because it takes more effort of our body to get from point A to point B and do all these things because we have more muscle mass on. And then obviously, muscle tends to look better than fat does. But with conditioning, this is where we're really prepping our bodies to, whether it's for, if you're in a sport, you want to prep to be able to go for the allotted amount of time within a play or within an effort, or, if you're in a bout or a match or anything like that, your body needs to be able to do that for that certain amount of time without getting tired. You should be able to put forth the same amount of effort. And I say this because with conditioning, there really shouldn't be a ton of resistance involved in this. Like sprints, for instance. Sprints are, sprints that you should not be wearing weight really whenever you're sprinting. Granted, I'm talking about the general population here. Shouldn't really be wearing like a lot of weights whenever you're sprinting. Shouldn't be holding weights whenever you're doing a cardio class, a bunch of weights. As we tell our members, it's not like we don't use weights on our quote unquote cardio days, but the emphasis of it is that you should be able to keep doing the same motion with the same amount of effort, and it should look clean and crisp, and there should be no drop off. If there's drop off, that means that you've surpassed that capacity, and now you're just really doing damage. And so with conditioning, you want to make sure, if for conditioning power, for instance, this would be, for someone who, like a basketball player or something like that, they might, this might be a coach that has someone going up and down on steps or like jumping up and down on something for, less than 10 seconds, and then they take a long break. Okay, because you want to make sure you have that full effort. At the same time, if someone's on a bike or a runner, you can, if you're going at a slow enough pace and you're not putting forth so much effort, you can go for longer periods and not need as much rest. And I know I'm kind of like jumping around here, but my point with conditioning is conditioning has to be very focused. You can't just like throw a bunch of other things in there and make it so that, and feel like you're actually achieving a goal with conditioning. Conditioning is not about burning fat. That's the result of it, but it's not about burning fat. Conditioning is not about conditioning is it's not about burning calories. It's not about using that as a tool to look better. Conditioning is meant to make our systems more efficient. So we need to make sure that we are prioritizing it to do so and not look at it so much as a mechanism. And you do this through, your heart rate's a good way to look at this. Like I always talk about for, excuse me, recovery cardio, you should, and again, this varies with people, but a good rule of thumb, recovery cardio, I mean, your heart rate should not go above 100 to 120. Now, 120 is more someone who's in like their 30s, whereas like 100 is for someone who's more in like their 60s, 50s or 60s. But then, from 120 to 150, that is where we're looking at more of that longer, and this is what they call like a tempo, this longer endurance cardio. That's where you're really putting your aerobic cardio, which is, longer lasting, conditioning to a certain point. Okay. So, these are the bouts you go out and you might do like 5 minutes and keep your heart rate between 120 and 150. And then you might give yourself, a minute or 2 minutes to kind of bring that heart rate back down to 120 if it gets too high, and then you repeat. And then over 150, that's where you really start to get in what's called like anaerobic. This is where, this is for sports such as, hockey, basketball, wrestling, depending on wrestling, boxing. These are more anaerobic sports. So people typically do anaerobic style trainings with that because they need to increase their capacity with that. But this is typically where like HIIT cardio comes into play. So high intense interval training is a lot of times more of like an anaerobic style cardio. And you really have to watch with this conditioning, because if you can really put yourself in a hole if you do this way too much. So here's a for instance. There's a certain club or boutique gym that we will not say their name, but they like to work out in what's called the orange zone. And the orange zone is this like over 150 heart rate. And the problem with this is once you get over 150 beats per minute in your heart rate, you're really putting forth a lot of effort, which means you're getting tired very quickly, which means if you're using weights and you're using like other resistance, not just your body weight, but you're using other things, if you're going too heavy, your technique and your form is really going to falter, which really puts you at risk for injury. So I say this in the sense of conditioning is meant for a specific focus. And if you really push conditioning too much and you combine it with other things that makes you even more tired, you're going to have, there's going to be some results that you're not really looking to achieve when you come out of this. Next, combo. Now I use combo because this is for places that combine strength, muscle building, and conditioning. This is more of like your boot camp style gym, if you will. So combo, again, is where you are combining all of them. These are places that'll have you maybe, there's some places that they have like a treadmill or rower and, some dumbbells set up that you do it that way, or a kettlebell set up and you do it, you do like circuit style training is basically more like what boot camp or combo style training is. This is fine. The only issue I run into with this is, again, when you do circuit style training or when you do this, you are working on conditioning. And if you try to combine strength training with conditioning in the same workout, and I'm talking about the workout as like you are putting them together, you are achieving nothing because you're not going heavy enough to do strength training. You are not doing heavy enough to get really a lot of muscle building involved. But you're also not keeping your heart rate at a consistent, steady level to where you can hit conditioning. And so you're kind of just confusing your system by doing a lot of different things at one time to where there's not a great emphasis focused here. And so this is why I have nothing against boot camps. I think for some people they're great things and they're they're exhilarating, they're engaging, and it keeps people accountable. And I'm, again, totally cool with that. However, I caution the fact that these style sessions aren't really achieving anything specifically. Yes, can you get results with them? Sure. Do they burn calories? Yes. Can you get muscle? Can you build muscle with them? Yeah, to an extent. But, again, it's kind of like one of those jack of all trades, master of none type of deal. Next is mobility. So when I think of mobility, I'm talking about like yoga and Pilates. These are exercise types that emphasize, mobility, taking a joint to its end range and either holding it or doing a certain move or action at that end range to, again, embrace mobility and flexibility. Pilates uses more weights in this example, whereas yoga, it's more body weight. Okay. Now, yoga or Pilates, now I'll, if I say Pilates, people are going to jump on me for this one. But with yoga and Pilates, again, people think, all right, it has weight, so there's a strength factor to it. And it has, and there's weight, so there's like a muscle building factor to it. Not necessarily. I mean, yes, can you get results? Sure. But again, if you're not taking the weight to a certain level, a certain amount of effort, and if you're not holding that effort for a certain amount of time, so let me back up real quick with this too. So with muscle building, so isometrics, and what isometrics are is where you hold a certain position for a long period of time. So let's say a wall sit, for instance. So your back's against the wall, you sit down, do a squat, and you hold that for a certain amount of time. Can that stuff supplement muscle building? Yes. Yes, it can, because it builds up it builds up hydrogen ions and free radicals, and what that is that then flags your system that it needs to adapt and needs to have a hormonal response to make change. However, it's all it is. Like isometrics are a supplement. You cannot have an entire program based around isometrics or like holding positions for long period of times and have results to like build muscle, because again, the biggest part of building muscle is having a muscle go to its full length and then fully contract. And it's kind of the same thing with strength. Well, when it comes to things like yoga and Pilates, that's what you're doing. You are going and you're holding a position for a long period of time, you were doing an isometric, and so you're not using enough resistance, you're not going through enough contraction cycles to really get a lot of like muscle building. Now, some can say, what about sun salutations? We might do those like 5 times. Sure, yeah. I mean, things like that could help, but again, body weight things don't really, people can argue with gymnasts, but body weight things don't really help a lot with strength training or muscle building. Can they? Sure. With the right stimulus, yes. People don't realize when it comes to like gymnasts, they're doing multiple repetitions, and those people are also genetic freaks. Freak in a good way, but they also are doing conditioning they're doing some sort of strength conditioning on the side too to supplement. So that's also why they look the way they do. Next, we're going to talk about stability. Stability is things like Tai Chi, yoga, and Pilates. So yes, yoga and Pilates are kind of in this, but stability is really just a type of exercise that really focuses on stability and balance. And Tai Chi does this. Tai Chi is great for this. It's very well researched. It's also very calming. If you're someone that really needs to be stimulated during a workout, Tai Chi is not for you. But for those who want the calming, the stability factor, all that stuff, Tai Chi, yoga is obviously very good for that too, as well as Pilates. And again, when you're doing more like one-legged stance things, when you're putting yourself in awkward positions where your body has to stabilize, that's what creates this effect. Now, again, these things are not good for strength building. I know people like to say that, you build a lot of strength with things like yoga because you put your body in an awkward position, it needs to stay there. Well, yes, but there's different, stability and balance is kind of your ability to maintain a certain position with somewhat of an outside force, okay? And this outside force is typically gravity. However, to build strength, you have to have a massive, a higher load that you are constantly overcoming and moving from point A to point B to really get that strength goal. Now, again, can you get some strength building with this stuff? Yes, but as we'll go on later on, you need to have what's called progressive overload. And that's what truly matters. So, what is progressive overload while we're on this topic? So, progressive overload is the fact that you are consistently adding weight, adding resistance, adding load over time with the exercises and the routine that you are doing to make sure that you are constantly stimulating the muscle, you're constantly signaling change, and you're not just doing the same thing over and over again. Remember, we talked about earlier, you want to make sure that you're going somewhat to failure with this stuff. And if you're not going to somewhat failure, then you're not going to really have the optimal. And again, I said this, at the very beginning, my disclaimer was this is all for optimal. So for optimal response, you have to go close enough to failure. And so with things like, yoga Pilates, you're not really going to failure. Yes, are you going to feel a burn? Yes, you're going to feel, an effort? Sure. But again, you have to provide that certain stimulus. So what makes there's 2 more. Next one, virtual. So I say virtual just to throw these all into one camp. And virtual a lot of times, and I'm not going to go into all the programs out there, but these are the ones you can access like on demand, so to say. And these programs typically try to encompass all of these, which is great. It's good that they encompass all of them and that you have access to all of them. But the issue that runs into this is now it's people are like, well, I'll just do like all these different sessions and that'll be enough for me. And again, it becomes that jack of all trades where they're just doing a bunch of different things and they don't really have an idea of what they're working towards. And they think that this will just get me in the shape by doing this. The other problem with this is you don't, again, go into progressive overload. So if you don't focus on strength for a certain amount of time, then you're not going to really get stronger because you need to focus on strength. A proper way to do this type of program, to do any type of programming, is focus on strength for a certain amount of time, and then focus on building muscle for a certain amount of time, and then focus on conditioning for a certain amount of time, and then focus on more recovery and and maybe variety for a certain amount of time, and then go back through and repeat. But people tend to just do all these things at once, and again, you're not really focusing on one specific thing. Something else, and this isn't really a program, but one-on-one. I put one-on-ones on here, so this is where you actually have a personal trainer because, again, with things like virtual or if you're in sessions or classes, where the issue can be is if you don't have one-on-one, then you're kind of going off the goal of what the instructor wants you to do that day, not necessarily the best goal for you. And then you also don't have someone truly watching you and paying attention to you to make sure that you're doing what needs to be done and how correctly it needs to be done. And so one-on-one is different because now you actually have a coach or a trainer who sits down, gets to know your goals, and then creates a program, hopefully creates a program that's based around you, your goals, your wants, and your needs. And so this is, and you can have a one-on-one trainer with each or any of these programs, but that's, I kind of put that by itself because it is truly a skill all by itself. So, what makes them all different as I go into this. So strength, for instance, strength again, so when I say like strength, muscle building, conditioning, when I bring these into it, and even mobility and stability, you can kind of throw this into, but they have a specific focus. So when you sign up for a strength program, that program should be focused on strength, and that is it. I mean, yes, you can have accessory work, stuff like that, but it should really just focus on strength. Now, there are things out there known as like concurrent programming where they focus on multiple things at once, but typically those programs still focus a little bit more on one specific thing rather than, everything at once. So you might, a program like this, you might sign up and it has both or has like strength, muscle building, and conditioning built in, but for a certain amount of time, you're focusing more on strength. You have a little bit of support for muscle building, and then you have a little bit of conditioning, and then eventually you'll focus like very little on strength. You'll focus more on muscle building and a little bit more on conditioning. And then at one point, it's about preserving strength, preserving your muscle, and focusing strictly on conditioning. Combo style, like I said, with boot camp style training, again, you're kind of like throwing everything in the blender and then mixing it all together. So you don't actually taste the banana, you don't actually taste the protein powder, you don't actually taste the honey. Can you tell that I made a shake this morning? You're kind of just mixing everything together. And again, if that's what you want, then that's fine. But what's really happening with these programs, and again, this is sessions all together or like classes all together, is that it's not that they give you the best results, it's that people enjoy them. And this is going to be one takeaway that I bring up to people is that whenever we talk with people all the time who say, I just, I hate exercise. I'm not an exerciser. I hate it. I don't enjoy it. And it's just not for me. That's not exactly true per se. What it is typically people have yet to find what sticks for them. There's something about a certain thing that'll stick for them. So for me, it's strength training. I love strength training. I love picking heavy things up. I don't know why. I just do. I enjoy it. I really enjoy intense training sessions. I enjoy, like flipping tires and sledgehammers and hitting a heavy bag and stuff like that. Like I love those type of sessions. So those things really stick for me. That's what I really enjoy doing. However, like my wife, for instance, Nina, is very big on group. She loves being a part of group sessions. She loves feeling like she's a part of a community. So that's why, like she was a part of CrossFit for a little bit. She was a part of a kickboxing style gym for a while. And now she, does more of on demand where she has a community of people that surrounds her too. And so that's what she really enjoys. Some people, though, they really enjoy running. So that's what they do. They run all the time. And that's what stuck for them. Or biking or hiking. That's what stuck for them. So that's really the thing is like you need to find what sticks for you. And so when these programs come out and they're like, we give you the best results, it's not necessarily that. If you sign up for a program that they, have your heart rate over 150 the entire time and that's it, like they're just putting you through the ringer, that's not necessarily that gives you the best results. It's the fact that the people that go there like it because they want to do an intense workout the whole time. Now, this comes with a caveat. You shouldn't be doing this all the time, but these people enjoy that. Or these people enjoy classes. They like being a part of communities. They like to not feel alone. And so that's what works for those people. Or, like for CrossFit gyms, like people like CrossFit gyms because they like the high intensity of it. They like the fact that there's a lot of there's a different workouts out there they can time themselves on. Or we can go to the flip side. People like yoga because these aren't the people that like to feel overly stimulated. These are the people that like to feel calm. They want they want to hold certain poses. They want to, feel the way their body moves in certain positions. And that's why like Tai Chi and stuff works for them as well. So that's the thing. Like, don't ever let a program sell you that it gives you the best results. That's not true. It's not going to give you the best results. It's going to give you, first off, it's going to give you what you look for. If you're looking for just a program to stick to that's going to be fun and exhilarating, then that's what you need to focus on. But don't think that you're going to go into a program that's fun and that you enjoy it, and that's actually what's going to give you, the best results to be stronger, or the best results to be conditioned, or the best results to build muscle. However, I do say it is important to find what sticks for you. So find the best program that you really enjoy, that you're surrounded by the right people, and that you, at least for the love of God, have a good coach. So, I say this in a sense of, if you have these sessions where people are like, oh, I go there and we run and we do this, but then we do this and then we do that, it's great. Like, I know I'm getting in shape. Maybe, but if you enjoy it, that's what truly matters. So how should you prioritize? Well, this is really based on your goals. So if your goal right now, let's say you don't have a gym that you go to or don't have a program that you're involved with. If your goal is, I just want to look better naked, let's be frank here. I just want to look better. I want to feel better. And I want to be able to do all the things with my family and my kids without, feeling run down, tired, fatigued, or in pain. Well, what that means is for you to look better, feel better, you feel like that you can do more, you need to be stronger. A, that will help you to do more. But B, and strength also adds a little bit of a capacity, like a conditioning in a sense. But then you also want to build muscle because people typically say, I want to tone up. Well, toning up means losing fat, but it also means making sure you have the muscle there to look better. So you need to find a program that is focused primarily around strength or muscle building, not cardio. Because all cardio is going to do is it's going to mess up how you incorporate those results. It's going to, mess with that emphasis. Again, jack of all trades, and then you're not actually going to achieve what you're looking to achieve. Now, if you're someone who's like, I am strong, I have the muscle mass that I want to preserve that, but I need to get in better shape. I need to get more conditioned. Maybe you have a run that you signed up for that you want to do. Or maybe you're about to go on vacation that you're going to hike a bunch of miles you want to get ready for. Then the program that you look for needs to be needs to revolve around conditioning. And this is, excuse me, this is safe conditioning is what I mean by this. I mean being under the attention of someone who knows what they're doing, who's not going to have you, put 100 pounds on your back and then go do hill sprints and stuff like that to where you can get injured. This is where you need to be, have a program that preserves your strength, preserves your muscle mass, but puts your heart rate and your respiratory rate at a certain amount to where you are actually, increasing your capacity and your endurance. Now, if you're somebody who has all those boxes checked, but your flexibility sucks, well, yes, maybe you can check out some mobility things such as Pilates or yoga to make you better there. Or let's just say you're stressed to all hell and your mental health is at stake. Well, this is where like a Tai Chi or a yoga can definitely help you. So it all comes down to what your priorities are to figure out what program you need to do next. Now, if you find a place that they program all those things in there, then awesome. And they program it right. They program it right with progressive overload, where, you're constantly doing a thing for a certain amount of time and consistently adding weight, consistently adding resistance, consistently increasing the effort, because that is what's going to get you the goals that that's what's going to get you where you want to go. My biggest gripe with a lot of circuit style programming is if you go in there every time and the workout is different or the exercises are different, then you're not getting better at anything. Yes, not everyone needs to squat, bench, and deadlift, but you should be squatting, hinging, and pushing and pulling a certain way all the time for a certain amount of time to get you better at that. Because what happens is if someone has a really horrible squat and they go in the gym every time and it's a different squat, they can't get good at it. They can't improve at that skill. And that's with all areas of lifting. And this is, again, why you need to make sure that this is like muscle, this is why the stupid idea of muscle confusion that's out there that people feel like the thing, you don't want to confuse the muscle. You want to make the muscle very aware of what it's doing, because then that reduces the risk of injury, that improves your efficiency. And if you have all those boxes checked, then you can start adding variety somewhere else. I know that was a rant there, but that's a big thing that people miss out on, is there should not be variety every time you walk into a workout to where you're doing something different. Again, if you just want to have fun and you just want to have a party each time and not really worry about getting better at anything or getting stronger, then yes, that stuff's great. But if your priority is to get stronger and to get more conditioned, then you need to make sure that you're not throwing in all of that variety, and you make sure that someone actually knows what they're doing when they're programming it. Okay, off my soapbox. So, talked about prioritizing. Now let's talk about the core. Should you, and this is a little side note that I wanted to kind of throw in here. Should you train your core? I do not believe there needs to be a core circuit or anything thrown in there. I believe that a good, well-established, put-together program will have the core built in. First off, if you're doing a lot of free weights type exercises, like you're doing, some type of squat, some type of deadlift or RDL, you're doing some type of step, some type of push, some type of pull. If you're doing that, you're involving the core. So you really shouldn't you're involving the trunk, excuse me. So you shouldn't really have to incorporate a lot of core work. I get very upset when I hear people say, oh yeah, I'm doing this and I'm also doing like 15 minutes of core 4 times a week. No, don't do that. If you tire your core out too much, then it's going to be mashed potatoes, throughout your workday. And then that's where we'll rely more on our chairs. That's where we're not going to want to, stand up. We're going to want to sit more. And in reality, if you have a well balanced out program, don't worry about the core. People just like to sell the core because everyone wants a trimmed, ripped, insert adjective here, midsection. And I'm sorry, that all comes down to diet, not how many crunches you do. Just saying. All right, before I go way off the rails here, let's come down and as we've talked about before, we always finish the show up with the 3 takeaways. So takeaway number 1, figure out your goal. And that's the most important one here, is please figure out your goal. You can't join a program. You won't know what program you should be doing unless you figure out whether you want to either get stronger. So here's the possible goals that you can have, and pick one. Do you want to get stronger? Do you want to put on muscle? Do you want to get more efficient and increase your capacity? Do you want to get more mobile? Or do you want to improve your stability? Okay? Figure that out first. Now, there doesn't have to just be one answer to that, because to be honest with you, getting stronger and improving your stability and balance, those kind of go hand in hand. You can easily achieve both of those together. Or, if you want to get stronger and build muscle, you can also kind of do those two things together. But And mobility, honestly, if you're on a good program, mobility should be involved in all of those anyhow. So you should not focus specifically on mobility. I've seen a lot, believe it or not, I've seen a lot of patients who came to me who had back pain, hip pain, who when I asked them what they do, they're like, oh, I do yoga like 4 or 5 days a week. Well, that's because all you're doing is focusing on flexibility and you're not really focusing on strength and building muscle. So again, a good program should have mobility built in. But if you want to throw in a few yoga days, a couple yoga days a week, just to, good for your head and help with recovery, you can definitely do that. So again, figure out what your goals are. But if your goal is to get more conditioned, if you want to, improve your efficiency, if you are looking to do a competition such as a run or a bike or a hike or something like that, then conditioning is going to be your goal. So again, choose which one you want. But I'm here to tell you, you cannot pick strength and conditioning, and you cannot pick muscle building and conditioning and put them all in one. It's not going to happen. You're going to risk injury. It's not specific enough. And remember, our goals need to be specific. So again, when you're figuring out your goals, SMART goals, they need to be specific, they need to be measurable, they need to be obtainable, they need to be results oriented, and they need to be timely. Or excuse me, R is also realistic, results oriented or realistic, and then T is time sensitive. So figure out your goals first. Number 2, realize the difference between fitness and flashy. So there's all these boutique programs out there now. There's all these on-demand things out there now. They're all extremely flashy. Realize the marketing is a thing. These all of these different platforms, all these different businesses, all these different gyms, they are flashy for a reason because they are trying to get you through the door. And they will be flashy when you start because that is what's going to make you have fun when you're there. But eventually the flashiness wears off and it all comes back to your goals. You're not always going to be motivated. So it's going to come back to your goals at some point. And so figure out exactly what you want. Yes, you should have a coach or a trainer who is fun, who is enthusiastic, and who cares. That is very important. But they also need to be knowledgeable. They also need to understand your goals, and they need to customize things to what you need, or else you are literally just doing what their goal is. And that's no bueno. So understand there's a difference between fitness and being flashy. And the fitness side of things, again, they need to make sure they are mentioning they're prioritizing strength, muscle building, conditioning, mobility and stability. Finally, number 3, progressive, not variety. I don't really need to go on this rant again, but make sure you are picking a program or a gym that provides progressive overload, doing somewhat of the same thing each time for a certain amount of time. I'm not saying they need to do the same workout for 6 months, but they need to be doing somewhat of the same thing for a certain amount of time to A, get you better at a movement, B, get you more knowledgeable with your body and how it moves, and then C, you can steadily increase the load to make it more difficult, which is going to also help you to adapt and make you stronger, make you more stable, build muscle. Not variety. Again, if you have someone who's punching muscle confusion down your throat and every time you walk into the gym it's a different workout and there's no actual emphasis on what you were training or why you were training that, you need to turn around and run. And I say this because I've had I say this from a PT standpoint, not from a gym owner standpoint. As a PT owner, or excuse me, as a PT physical therapist, I've had a lot of people walk in my office who were injured because someone went through a program that just threw shit at the wall and tried to see what would stick each and every time people would show up, and they didn't get good at that movement. They're not good at that movement, and they eventually fatigued out and they injured something. So there's my 3 takeaways. Figure out what your goal is, be smart about it, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time sensitive. Understand the difference between fitness versus flashy. Just because it's flashy doesn't mean it's good. And then seek something that has progressive overload, not variety. Grant, variety, don't get me wrong, variety is good in the sense of you don't want the same bland old thing all the time, but it's constant variety. It's, again, no bueno. So, thank you guys so much for listening to me rant for the last 45 minutes. I hope you gained some, you gained some good takeaways here. Really, the best program that will give you the best results is one that sticks, one that you enjoy doing, but B, one that also sticks with your goals, and then C, consistently improves to make you better. And that's the best program for you. So thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your week, and I will see you on the next show. Love y'all. Bye.